They're also on Google Classroom, Mr. Keneally, so like they can access.
So basically I'm gonna welcome them, gonna let them know the Spanish in case they're in the wrong place, let them know the agenda's online, they don't have to worry about it really. Go over it, introduce Mark. Mark, when you're done, hand the mic over to
I'm sorry.
who started?
Hi. Yes.
Go.
That's me. Yeah, Miss McCall. Okay. Yeah.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you. So thank you guys so much for being here. Tonight is our junior college night. Now, I said that to my wife the other day. She's like, oh, you guys are talking about junior colleges? And I was like, ooh, maybe it should be college night for juniors and their parents. We'll work on the renaming convention. But this is a great opportunity to kind of get a head start on what's going to be happening senior year. So thank you all for being here. There's a lot of information we're going to talk about today, but know that this is not the only time that you as parents or you as students are going to hear this information. There's going to be plenty of opportunities to ask questions because we know that families are coming from all different places when it comes to college or post-secondary opportunities. So we definitely want to take that into consideration. And we also want to make sure that before you leave here today, you get any questions you might have answered. So we're going to do a great presentation that's been put together by our amazing school counseling interns, Ms. Wu and Ms. McCaw. But before we jump right into the college post-secondary presentation, I do want to ask Mr. Mark Lopez of Forge to come on up here and just talk a little bit about what Forge is before we dig into the college material. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Keneally. I will be very brief. My name is Mark Lopez. For those who may not know me, I am the Forge on-site coordinator. Forge is a before and after school program that runs here at Vaughn. It looks it's very creative. There's a bunch of programs, and I just really wanted to talk about Forge in the summer. So we have some really cool programs coming up. They're all going to be in June. The first month is going to be Sports Club. That first week is going to be all sports. The second week, it'll be sneaker design, and the last week will be outdoor sketching. These programs are absolutely no cost to you all. All you have to do is sign up. It's first come, first served. And so all of these, all you have to do is sign up. What's really cool is that week 2, there's going to be sneaker design. So you're going to take home your own personal sneakers and design them yourself. But all 3 programs have really unique, creative touches. So if you're interested, you can sign up using that link right over there. bit.ly, Summer Forge. It is case sensitive, so you have to type it exactly how it is. If you have any questions, you can contact me at mlopez@northrivercommission.org. Appreciate it. Yeah, and really quickly, if you're looking for the Spanish pack, it's going to be in room 112?
116.
116. I apologize.
112. 112.
112. Apologize. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, I'm sorry. No worries.
All right, so thank you all for coming out tonight. As Mr. Keneally said, I am Ms. McCaw. I am one of Vaughn's school counseling as seniors. We'll talk a little bit about the procedures that are specific to Von Steuben. We'll go over what the Common Application is, why it's important, and what your students can do to start working on it. We'll talk through resources that exist for your students as they start searching for colleges that might be a good fit for them. We'll give a broad overview of financial aid, and then finally we'll talk about next steps. So, all of you are here, spring 2023. Your students are finishing up their junior year. I'm sure as you're thinking about them becoming seniors, there's a lot of thoughts and emotions going on, but what can you be doing right now? So, the biggest thing we want to talk about are the 5 steps up here. All of your students recently took the SAT, but they can be preparing to take the SAT again if they didn't, feel so strongly about their performance a couple weeks ago. Okay? So there are retakes offered for the SAT, both in June and then again in August. If you want your student, or if your student is really eager to retake it in June, registration for that is by May 4th. Okay, so preparing for the SAT if you're interested in retaking it. We also want students to start thinking about their list of colleges that they want to explore, research, and ultimately apply to. And we really recommend tracking, opening up a Google spreadsheet, having some kind of list to keep track of all of the schools that your students are interested in applying to. Finally, we want students to already get a head start filling out the Common Application. We'll talk a little bit more about that tonight. And drafting their personal statements or their college essay. Okay, those are things that all of your juniors can be working on this summer so that when they come in the fall as a senior and application season starts, they're not feeling so frantic. And then finally, summer is an awesome time to visit colleges, right? Use some of that free time to get on campus and get a feel for what it is to actually walk around and be in the buildings. So like I said, spring and summer, right? We want students to be filling out the Common Application, working on their essays, and visiting those different schools they think they may be interested in. Once it comes time for your student to actually be a senior, so fall of 2023, our goal is for them to come in with a finalized college list. Now obviously things may change as you set foot on campus or as you learn more about the opportunities that schools offer, but it's really great for your senior to come in with a set list, right, of maybe around 8 schools that they really could see themselves attending and that they plan to apply to. In the fall, counselors will be pushing into classrooms and divisions for all seniors to give lessons about the process in more detail, but they also will be calling students down to have one-on-one meetings and go through all of the steps, right? So your student is going to have that one-on-one time with their school counselor to talk about what their individual plan and what their goals are. Then they're going to start applying to schools. So the fall of senior year is quite hectic. It's really busy. Those applications take a lot of time, some of them, and so the fall is really filled with that work. And then the FAFSA, which is the financial aid application or the alternative application for aid, will open up in December. So that carries us into the winter. Students may still be applying to some schools with some of those later deadlines. They should begin working on scholarship applications so that they can help close that gap for how much it's going to cost to attend school. And they'll start receiving some decision letters. So students apply what we call early action, so in the fall. They may hear back, in December or January, which is always really exciting. And then as we move into spring, you'll hear more decisions, and you'll start receiving some of those financial aid packages. And then finally, May 1st, which is coming up for our current seniors, is National College Decision Day. So all colleges have this one day that students are required to commit or tell them that they are intending to enroll in their school. So it's quite a big deal. So that will carry them through their senior year.
So now I'm going to talk about the application procedures here at Bond. So I want to make sure that students understand that you as students are responsible for understanding each of these college deadlines. Of course, we do have the college Common App will have reminders on there for you to know what the deadlines are, but make sure that if you are planning on applying early, that you're looking at those priority or early action deadlines, okay? Those can help you be considered for any additional scholarships or grants that the institutions may offer, okay? You do receive a decision earlier because you're applying earlier, okay? So oftentimes these deadlines will be like November 1st, November 15th, and December 1st. So you want to make sure that you know which deadlines for the schools that you are planning on applying to, okay? There are also early decision deadlines that are separate for early action and priority deadlines, but make sure that you understand that you can only apply to one school as early decision, and it is a binding decision, a binding agreement, okay, in comparison to early action and priority, which are non-binding. You are also responsible for understanding what the college applications require, okay? So whether or not they are asking for you to submit a personal statement or additional essay, short answer questions, if they're requiring multiple teacher or counselor recommendation letters, if the schools require SAT or ACT test scores, if you are required to complete a CSS profile for that particular school as well, and whether or not you also have to participate in a admissions interview. So usually at the beginning of your senior year, you will have a meeting with your counselor, okay, where we will go over these application procedures with you. We will have a presentation that will go through the process with you, in addition to having an individual one-on-one meeting with you. To go over everything, you will receive a folder of all of the materials that you need to complete over the school year. So as a senior, there are certain requirements that you do have to complete. One of them is applying to at least 3 matched colleges. One of them needs to be at least an Illinois public university. You should report any admissions results that you receive from the colleges or universities to your counselors, whether that's being accepted, deferred, waitlisted, or denied. We want to know. Make sure that you are completing also either the FAFSA or the alternative application, whichever application that you're eligible for. So all of these are graduation requirements. Once you start receiving your financial aid award letters or packages, make sure that you come to the counseling office, talk to your counselor about it, review the packages together, really compare the packages so you know which one is a better deal, which one is more affordable for you, what are your out-of-pocket costs, and how you can cover those gap costs. You'll also need to complete a senior exit questionnaire, and also as part of your last graduation requirement is completing that Learn, Plan, Succeed requirement, where you have to provide evidence or proof of what your post-secondary plan is. So here at Vaughn, we do have supports for you all, right? So in September, like I mentioned earlier, you will be having a group meeting with your counselor by division so that we can go over the application process and the senior requirements, and then you'll have scheduled individual one-on-one meetings with your counselor. We'll also have presentations to go more into detail about financial aid, what are the eligibility requirements, how to go about completing that process. And then throughout the school year, you'll have support, right? All year round support from the counselors, from the counselor interns. We'll also have after-school workshops and also additional classroom lessons, events to help support you during this process.
So before I jump into this, I do just want to say the slides from tonight, for the whole presentation, and the handout that you got are all posted on your students' junior Google Classroom. So I love that you're all taking pictures of it, but they are there as resources so you don't have to worry about missing anything. So as your students start applying to college, this is to start really early, right in the fall, we just want you to know that these days, most colleges exist on this thing called the Common Application. So the Common Application allows your students to fill out a lot of their demographic and information that they would have to put on every single application one time, right? And then add in additional things that are college specific and apply to schools all from that one Common App, okay? Some schools do not use Common App, they have their own application on their school website. It is very rare these days for any school to have a paper application. So your students will will largely be doing this online. Because of that, that means your students are going to have so many different logins and passwords. So we really recommend your students finding a safe way to keep track of all of their different usernames, the email addresses that they use, whether it's personal or CPS, the passwords they create, because believe it or not, half of the time in the fall that seniors spend is like trying to log into accounts that they've locked themselves out of. So thinking about a way, whether it's a spreadsheet or an app on your phone to keep track of all that information. So a little bit more about the Common App. All of the juniors already created their Common Application account. So they're already one step in. We did this together through their English classes on Tuesday, March 21st. So if your student, if you know your student happened to be absent that day, please encourage them to follow up with their counselor so that we can make sure before they head into the summer they have their Common App completed. But like I said, this is a really handy way for your students to apply to several schools without having to do their name, date of birth several times. So it's a single application. There are over 800 colleges that use this, so it's really handy. And yeah, it's a great tool, and it's something that we want the students to spend a lot of time working on this summer. Because students already created their account, we do want them to know that it rolls over each August, right? Because colleges can update their applications. And so if they're building out a college list in Common App before August 1st, they may have to go in and re-add colleges that they did, okay? Anything though that they add in their profile will stay, and all they need to do when they log in August 1st or after is ask, like, yes, I do want to roll over my account, so that all of their information gets transferred, and they will be a student applying to schools for the 24-25 school year, which is weird to say. Okay. Where to start when you think about college lists? I know that's probably a really big concern or question in a lot of your minds. And so there are a lot of things we ask that you and your students consider when you think about building out a college list that really works for you all. So the first is, what is your academic match level? What colleges would be a good fit based on your personal preferences? What schools are going to offer you the best financial aid awards? And where do students graduate successfully? So we're going to talk about each of these a little bit more specifically. So when we talk about what is your academic match level, we actually have this really handy tool. This is called the College Match Grid. This is linked on these slides, but it's also available on Bond's website. And this kind of helps your student know what kind of school or college they can apply to that would be a good academic match. So you can see over on the left-hand side, you'll have the SAT scores, and up on the top, you'll have the unweighted GPA, and your student can use those two numbers of theirs to kind of track out what type of schools academically could be a good fit for them. Right, so if I'm a student with a 2.9 GPA and a 1060 on my SAT, I'm going to be sitting kind of in this middle competitive area, and those are schools that might be a really solid academic match. Now, I absolutely could still apply to highly competitive schools. We consider this a little bit more of a reach, right? But it's still possible. And it's not, we want to say, like, it's not black or white. It's not a guideline or a guarantee. It's just kind of a helpful tool as you start to look at different colleges and how competitive they are, okay? We want students to consider a list that has mostly matched schools, right? Mostly schools that are going to be a good academic fit, so that when they get on campus, they're feeling like a solid mix of challenge and confidence. And so that's why this tool is really helpful. And alongside this grid on Bond's website is a spreadsheet that lists out by name colleges and universities that fall into these different categories. So moderately competitive, competitive, highly competitive. When we talk about a personal fit or a social fit, these are the kinds of things that we're talking about. So how far away is school from home, right? What does the commute to that school look like? Is it a small school, a small liberal arts school, or is it a large state university like U of I? Obviously, we want students to figure if the school has an academic program or major that is aligned with their future goals, right? Students might start undecided, and that's great. We encourage if the student needs more time to explore to do do so. But if a student really knows they want computer science, they should be looking at schools that have solid computer science programs, for example. One of the reasons why we really encourage students to get, setting foot on campus and visit in person, and for parents to do that as well, is to have a feel for that campus life and the atmosphere, right? There's only so much you can tell from a college website where they're really trying to sell themselves, or from brochures. We want you to go and experience what it would feel like to be a student walking around and walking in class. Obviously, cost is going to be something that's at top of mind for a lot of us. And so what would the cost, the out-of-pocket cost, be at this school after I consider any kind of financial aid they would give me? All schools have a calculator on their website that will help you kind of roughly figure out what your cost might be based on your income. So we highly recommend, as you're doing some of your research, go onto schools' websites, look for their net price calculator that helps you kind of differentiate from their sticker price to, hey, what would I actually be paying? And then, we are going to be offering more bus trips, not only from Bond, but the schools themselves offer bus trips and flyouts and different prospective student weekends. So have students really be checking their email, make sure you're keeping your eyes out for those, so that sometimes schools will sponsor you to go to their campus, right? Or they'll just say, hey, this is a campus for a weekend for students to come and see what it's really like. So keep your eye out. Okay, and then I'm not going to read through all of these, but these are hyperlinked on the Google Classroom version of this presentation. And these are all different resources online that are really helpful for students in comparing different schools, using it to even discover schools they might not know about yet, and also to actually evaluate schools, like, hey, how many people are graduating from this school within 4 years? How many people are graduating within 6 years?
So now I'm going to talk a little bit more about financial aid, right? This is a really important part. It is also a graduation requirement for students to complete their financial aid application. So here I'm going to talk a little bit more about the different types of financial aid that are available. Okay, so there's gift aid. So this is money that you do not have to repay back. So types of gift aid are federal Pell Grant, the state of Math grants, other grants and scholarships that you may be getting externally from different organizations or through the college or university itself, and that's based off of need or merit, okay? So most students who will qualify for a Pell Grant, you would fill out FAFSA, and it's based off of your household income for the year, okay? So we'll talk a little bit more about what some of the requirements may look like to fill out the applications. But other than gift aid, there's also loans that are usually offered when you complete the financial aid applications through FAFSA. So through FAFSA, federal student loans are offered. Okay, the Stanford subsidized loans and Stanford unsubsidized loans are offered through the Department of Education, where students are able to take out loans at a lower fixed interest rate. Okay, so there's differences between the two, where the subsidized, the Department of Education is actually covering the interest rates for you versus unsubsidized. Once you take out that loan, that interest rate is already accruing. And then we also have the Parent Plus loan that is offered to parents, so that will be taken out in the parent's name, but we don't really recommend taking that out because it's really like an unlimited amount of high amount of money that you can borrow if you want, so it might become an issue if you're unable to repay back that. And it is a higher interest rate in comparison to the federal student loans. And also found in the FAFSA will determine, your eligibility for the state and the federal and the state grant. So not everyone qualifies for it, but there's certain eligibility requirements where you will have to meet in order to file FAFSA, or if you're ineligible for FAFSA, then there's also the opportunity to possibly qualify to fill out the alternative application for Illinois financial aid, which will allow you to be eligible for the state MAC grant. So here is a timeline of financial aid. So during this month, right, in April, April 18th was the last day to file your taxes. If you haven't filed your 2022 taxes yet, those who have requested an extension for tax filing have until October 16th to file your taxes. And then between May through November is really when students should be looking for scholarships to apply to, even now, right? Utilizing the resources that was in the previous slide, like CapEx, academic works, and College Board Big Future to start applying to. In our lesson before, we really encourage students to look at the Big Future scholarships to apply to right now, because those are one of the ones that you can actually are able to apply to right now. Also utilizing the net price calculators on different universities' websites to really find out how much aid you might be possibly be eligible for, and also how much you will have to possibly pay out of pocket. And then in December, there's been a little change yet. We don't have quite the exact information yet, but there's been changes made to the FAFSA application for this upcoming school year, where it will open up in December instead of October this year. And we really encourage students to complete your FAFSA right after it opens up. Don't wait until the last minute to apply, because money does run out, the grant money does run out, so we encourage students to file that as soon as possible once the application opens up. Also, the alternative application for Illinois financial aid usually also opens up on October 1st. We haven't heard about any changes for that, but there may be changes, but as of right now, there hasn't been a change to this date. And then in January of next year, right, students should continue filling out the FAFSA if you haven't yet in December. You'll be able to identify what your student aid index is after you complete the financial aid application. It used to be known as EFC, where that shows you how much your family is able to contribute towards the college or education costs. Okay, so using that SAI number is how they will calculate how much financial aid you'll be eligible for. And then in January to April, students should continue applying for scholarships, right? You should slowly start knowing what your award packages will look like, how much financial aid you'll be receiving, what are your out-of-pocket costs, so what applications, or how many applications you need to complete, right? How much money do you need in order to cover those extra costs. You may also be selected for verification. So during this time, you will also be completing those documents if you haven't received a reward letter yet, to provide verification of any documentations that the colleges or universities may ask of you of what you provided on the financial aid application. And then you should be comparing your award letters as you are getting them, right? Figuring out how much you have to pay out of pocket, with loans, without loans, what do you need to do in order to cover those costs. And then in May through June, right, like Ms. McCall mentioned, May 1st is the National College Deadline. So you really want to know, let them know beforehand, right, which school you're planning on attending. And you should not be enrolling past this date, because a lot of them, that is the deadline and that's it, once you miss it, okay? You should know what your financial aid package is, right, before you make your decision. That's why it's important to make sure you compare your packages, right, your award letters, all of that, before making your final decision. And then the federal deadline for FAFSA is June 30th, but like we said earlier, we don't recommend that. We really encourage you all to complete it once the application opens up. The earlier you complete it, the better it is, because you never know when the grant money runs out. So maybe some questions that you may have. So what would you need in order to fill out a FAFSA form? Okay, you'll need your social security number, your alien registration number. If you're not a U.S. citizen, you will need information about your 2022 federal tax returns and W-2s, or any records of other forms of incomes you may have received during 2022. Some students may be able to utilize the IRS data retrieval tool in order to transfer the information directly from the IRS instead of manually investments if you have that, records of untaxed income, and then also students will need to create an FSA ID in order to also sign electronically. Same thing for parents if you have a social security number as well. So if you're a permanent resident or U.S. citizen, you will have to create an FSA ID. However, students do not, their eligibility for FAFSA is not dependent upon their parents' citizenship, okay? It's just as long as the student themselves have their social security number, they're able to fill out the FAFSA form. If you are a dependent student, if you're a dependent student, you're going to need the same information for your parents, okay? So if you worked in 2022, you will have to provide that, and if you're a parent, then you will also have to provide your parents' information as well.
So as Ms. Wu said, for students to be able to apply for FAFSA, they need to have a social security number. But if they are ineligible, they don't have their own social security number, they are not out of luck. There is still an alternative application for aid specific to the state of Illinois. And so this provides a way for eligible undocumented students to still apply for the Monetary Award Program grants, or the MAP grant as we refer to it. And this is Illinois' largest need-based grant that's specifically for low-income college students who may not be documented. So if you, the individual, have resided with your parent or guardian while attending an Illinois public school, like student, then you would be eligible, right, along with these other criteria. So if you resided with your parent while attending an Illinois public or private high school, if you graduate from a public or private high school, or receive the equivalent of a high school diploma in Illinois, like a GED, if you attended school in Illinois for at least 3 years as of the date of you graduate, of the individual graduating from high school, and or if you sign an affidavit stating that you will file an application to become a permanent resident of the U.S. at the earliest opportunity for you to do so, and that you have not established a residence outside of Illinois. And so, if you are a student who has lived in Illinois and been a CPS student for longer than 3 years, odds are you're going to be eligible for this alternative application for aid. If you're not sure about that, that's something you can clarify with your school counselor in the fall. But we have students every year go through this application, and it's a really good way to still make schools in Illinois affordable. Okay. I do want to say that tonight's financial aid presentation is really more of an overview. It requires a lot of information, and we know it can really get into the nitty-gritty details. But next year in the fall, when your students are seniors and actually getting ready to file their FAFSA or alternative application, we will have a FAFSA night that goes into this in more detail again. So I just wanted to put that out there, that this is just round one of information. But what you can be doing to prepare right now is make sure that you have filed your 2022 taxes correctly. If you think that there may be an error on your taxes, we recommend that you go to file an amendment as soon as possible, so that in the fall, or in the winter, when FAFSA opens, your student has the corrected version of the federal taxes ready to go. If taxes is something that is like a struggle or brings up a lot of anxiety, and your family makes less than $60,000, or you as an individual make less than $32,000, there's a really great program in Chicago called Ladder Up that we've linked that could provide you tax services and tax help and advice for free. And then we want you all to keep the documents that are required for FAFSA, so your federal tax forms, your W-2s, bank statements, any records of investments, keep those in a safe place. Ideally, you're already doing that, but you and your student will need access to those once you begin filing the FAFSA or the alternative app. And then we also, we can't recommend enough that throughout this process, from now until the spring of their senior year, students are looking for and applying to scholarships to help close any gap that might still exist after federal financial. Okay, so when we talk about filing taxes correctly, we wanted to point out a couple of common errors that we sometimes see that are connected to status. So what your status is when you file taxes doesn't necessarily affect who's completing the FAFSA. So what that means is, in order for, if a student's parents are married, then both parents will have to have their information on the FAFSA. Parents have to actually be divorced or legally separated for only one parent to be responsible for putting information on the FAFSA. Now, as Ms. Wu said, there are changes coming down the line from the federal government on FAFSA. So this is how it's always been. We've heard rumors that that might be changing next year. We will update you as soon as we all get updated. But just be aware that this bottom half of the screen is going to remain true just as a legal filing status. So if you are married, you cannot file your taxes as head of household. You must only file as married filing jointly or married filing separately. So that's just an error we've seen in the past, and we wanted to point out and make sure that it was correct as we're in tax season right now. And then finally, whatever is on the tax returns your student is using to file FAFSA needs to match up exactly with what's being put on FAFSA or the alternative app. Okay, so we have scholarship search resources for students. We know that money is a really big concern when it comes to college. And so CPS puts out their own scholarship resource called CPS Academic Works. This is for scholarships that are only for CPS students. So that's really helpful because instead of competing with students from across the country, the competition pool is just CPS students. They also post external opportunities as well. And then CapEx, College Board, Peterson's, these are all really useful sites that have a lot of different scholarship resources and applications for your students to begin filling out. And then for undocumented students, we have 4 resources for scholarships as well that are specifically for students who don't have a social security number. So these are all hyperlinked on the presentation or in the classroom.
And then just as a reminder for scholarships, okay, we've provided you all with, students with scholarship resources, right, on the previous slide. But remember that it is your responsibility to research about these opportunities, okay? You should be the ones who are looking for which scholarships you are eligible for, what are the requirements, what are the criteria, what do I need to complete in order to complete the scholarship application and apply. Okay, so it's your responsibility to do the research. We provided the resources for you. You can always come to the counselors for help though, but make sure that you as a student, you need to know what the requirements are, what the criteria are, and that you need to go ahead and submit that yourself. You should be doing research on what the requirements are. So is there a GPA requirement? Do they require an essay? Is letters of recommendations required, right? If a letter of recommendation is required, you want to make sure that you're asking your teacher, your coach, your counselor, whoever you're asking a recommendation letter from, give them time, right? You should be asking them a month in advance so that they have enough time to write you one. Minimum 2 weeks, but that's cutting it pretty close. You want to make sure that you give them ample enough time so that they're able to also submit their recommendation letter by the scholarship deadline as well. So you need to make sure that everything is submitted by the application deadline. So it's your responsibility to ensure that all the documents, all the materials that are required are submitted. Even if the recommendation letter is written by a teacher or counselor, you should be the one who are following up with them to make sure that they submit that. And also, the more money a scholarship is awarded, the more requirements that there are, most likely it's going to be a very competitive scholarship. Okay, so just be mindful about that. And then now we're going to talk about next steps. It is also kind of listed in the handout that you have already. We're just going to go over some of the things that you should be working on over the summer. Okay, you should be working on building your college list, right? You should have a list of approximately 8 to 10 schools on your list. Make sure that you're really diversifying your college list, so applying to safety, match, and reach schools, okay? A mix of public or private schools. Are you looking to apply to in-state or out-of-state schools. Make sure that you're researching the requirements, right, and the deadlines, right? We mentioned if you're interested in applying early, right, here's those early action, early decision, priority deadlines, right? Making sure that you have enough time to get those materials in, okay? And like I said too, for the scholarships, if your college applications require recommendations or essays, make sure you have enough time to get those done and make sure that you're also researching opportunities to visit the school, right? It's really important that you know the school, you know how the environment is, you know what they offer. Do you feel like you'll fit in with that school? You can look for free bus trips or free visits to visit those colleges, okay? Look for different prospective student weekends that you can attend. There's campus visits going on now, like throughout the school year. All you have to do is just go onto the school's website and look up campus visits to see when they're being offered and schedule time to go ahead and visit them. Make sure that you're also checking your email regularly. I really want to highly stress this. Please read and check your emails because there's a lot of good information in them, important information that you should be aware of. We keep you updated about any upcoming activities, programs, deadlines, right? It's all in your emails, so it's important that you're checking your emails. Make sure over the summer that you continue working on your Common App application, right? Getting those Common App questions done early on really is going to save you a lot of time when senior year begins, right? Working on your essay, right? The essay prompts are available. You can start working on your essays, brainstorming ideas, because you know senior year is going to be busy already on top of your classes. You're going to have to apply for scholarships, college applications, so working on that over the summer is definitely going to save you some time. Make sure that you're also looking over your SAT test scores, right? Everyone recently just took the SAT, so if you plan on retaking the SAT maybe based off of the scores that you received this time around, make sure that you're giving yourself enough time to actually prepare and study the materials before you retake it, okay? There's some upcoming dates for SAT on June 3rd and August 26th, so you want to think about which dates you want to register for, right? There's deadlines to register for those exams as well. Utilize Khan Academies to help you prep and prepare for those new tests. You can also start creating accounts with different scholarship websites, starting with CPS Academic Works. That is also one of your senior requirements is to create and complete your Academic Works application, right? Remember, those are strategic scholarships specifically for CPS students, right? All you have to do is just use your CPS login to fill out that general application, or using the live workbook to really look at what scholarships are currently being offered. And also start gathering that information for FAFSA alternative app, right? Those are materials that is important and that you really need in order to complete those applications. So make sure you have those ready for December 1st when the application opens up. And then now, if anyone has any questions.
So I think, yeah, we'll take general questions that might apply to the whole room, and then if you have individual questions, things that might pertain just to your family situation, Mr. Keneally is down here, he's our resident expert, he can answer those for you as well.
That hand in the back?
Yeah.
Is it the FAFSA or the Illinois map?
So,
You do both.
oh, the alternative application, so it's either one, so it depends on what you're eligible for. So like if you are a U.S. citizen or permanent resident, you're going to be, or your student is a permanent resident or U.S. citizen, they're going to be filling out the FAFSA. If you are an undocumented student who may not qualify for FAFSA, then you might be eligible to fill out the alternative application, but you only do one or the other. For FAFSA, you'll be considered, once you complete the application, you'll be considered for the Pell and MAC grant, while the alternative application is only aid for the MAC grant.
So if you fill out the FAFSA, it automatically goes to the map? Okay.
Yes, but the map will only be applicable if the student attends Illinois school.
I have one other question. So, because I didn't know about the map, so So when you do the FAFSA your second year of college, because you have to do it every year, does it automatically still go to the math also?
Yes.
Yes.
I had two questions. I was wondering right now, can I apply for scholarships that require teacher recommendation letters as a junior?
Yes.
And also, do you know when we would be getting our SAT scores?
They'll be beginning of May to mid-May. It takes 4 to 6 weeks for the test scores to come back. With writing, it usually takes a little bit longer, so you guys stick with writing. So my guess will be 6 weeks, so mid-May.
Isn't there a registration for retakes though? Do we get that before or after we go?
May 3rd is the deadline to apply for the June test. So what you need to make sure that you're doing though is studying now. If you want to take the June test, because there's also a May test, no one should be signing up for the May test
I
if
think
you
it's
just
too
took it. But the June test, make sure you're doing something, right? You got to be studying. You won't get your scores until mid-May, so you'll only have a few weeks with your scores to know what you need to focus on. So maybe August might be a better bet.
So you think register for the test before we get our results?
I wouldn't necessarily recommend that. I would probably go for the August one. Give yourself more time to prepare, right?
What happens to our CPS Google accounts once we graduate?
1 year?
1 year.
You keep them for 1 year. So you will keep that email account in your Google Drive, and about a year after graduation, it shuts down. So make a plan to save all of your documents elsewhere.
When it comes to recommendation letters, is it just for like any teacher that you have within all 4 years that you can sign on, or does it have to be like all the teachers that have?
I think you should be cognizant of which teacher to ask for, right? If you're applying to a specific program, like you're doing business or something like that, you really want to ask a math teacher, right? Versus if you're art teacher, right? So you really want to think about which teachers you have a good relationship with as well, right? You can write you a letter of recommendation.
Yep.
So I know if you write a personal statement for that applies to all colleges, but you just mentioned it's not based on questions. Is there a select amount of questions that we have to answer that also pertains to all colleges, or is that individualized depending on the college?
That's a great question. So the personal statement is, we also call it the Common App essay. So there are 7 different prompts that the Common App offers that you can choose from. So you'll pick one of the 7 and you'll respond to it. A lot of them get at what's something that you've gone through, how have you grown from that experience, and where are you at now, right? Like that's a broad overview of what they're trying to learn about you. Some of them are a little bit different than that. Other colleges will have their own individual questions that they might ask you, and it just depends on the schools that you're applying to. So for example, if you're applying to University of Illinois at Chicago, UIC, they want that personal statement from the Common App prompts, and then they also want one other supplemental or additional essay with their own prompt that's specifically about why you might want to attend the program you're looking for at UIC. Right, and so it's really important that as you're building your list, you're looking at what do the colleges require as far as the writing goes. Because the writing does take a long time, and some colleges ask for 2 or 3 supplemental essays depending on how competitive they are, right? On the flip side, there are some colleges that say, we don't actually need your personal statement or any essays, right? So just, it's college specific, and you want to be looking at that as you're building that list.
Will the college-specific prompts, those will be available August?
A lot of them are available now, but some, there might be some schools that will release in August. I would imagine most of them have those set as of now.
Does filing the FAFSA married but separate over filing jointly influence the amount of aid a student can get?
No. It does make it harder to put on the FAFSA if it's married filing separately, because then you, when you do things called verification, you're going to need more documents from different places. So if you do have that option, married filing jointly is the easiest way to input data on the FAFSA and also to do FAFSA verification later on. So as we take questions, if you don't have questions or you don't want to, I mean, people are free to go if they don't want to listen to questions. We don't want to keep people here, but we want to answer all the questions we can. So if you have general questions, we'll still take them. But also if you have individual questions about a specific instance, I can help you over here too.
So Mr. Keneally can answer individual questions in this corner, and Ms. Wu can answer individual questions in this corner, and I can still take general questions for the room. But if you are headed out, have a great evening. Thanks for joining us today. So yeah, general questions right here.
And if it's a general question, just repeat it.
Got it, girl. Holding it the whole time. Go take a moment. This is my mom. Oh, no.